All right, I got my voice recorder going. We've been talking about an anthro species.
Yeah, it's been a really good conversation.
Too bad we didn't record most of it.
Yeah, we got the idea to record it fairly too late, even though we've been thinking about recording these things for a while now.
This is Cyan. He's like my ambassador to them.
I'm the guide. Nah, I'm very much content being a friend. I don't want to be a guide. It's hard work. You're always responsible for some weird shit.
But we've contacted, he's contacted an anthro species where they're sending or one of the anthros is volunteering to come to Earth as a human.
Yeah, they do have a program where they send people to Earth and take human bodies. Like, as far as I can tell, most of the civilizations we're in contact with due to the whole quarantine thing.
Yeah.
It seems like they send like ambassador souls who then like take human body with like Federation level technology. They're like genetically modified to become human, and then they're sent here for various reasons. So it feels like the guy you're talking with and been talking about is like one of those people that he's gonna go through the program and like contact the Council of Saturn or something and get to Earth. It feels like that.
It's just about love.
Sending him a lot of love energy.
Yeah, I like the anthro species. When somebody does wrong, they just want to give a lot of hugs or whatever. They say hugs are the cure.
Yeah. When it's not like a predatory crime, like a serial killer, even like murders done in like the heat of the moment get like hugged away. They don't send them to prison, but they do distinctly have prison facilities for the most serious offenders, and their corrective program is something like our corrective program for homosexuals, which is in our world completely wrong. But in their society, it's like they correct crimes by hugging the person who's done the crime instead of like punishing them.
Is it just a physical hug, or are they doing an energy transfer too?
Both. It's distinctly both. They do a lot of physical hugging as well. They do so that when you walk in the streets and you've committed a crime and they're doing the healing program, everybody like looks like they're looking at you, and they go like send loving energy, and they look like they're smiling at you and so on. So you get like a sense of awe. You're like feeling like you should be corrected instead of feeling like you were left out, and they make sure you get all the like social benefits and you get like the money that you need and so on and so forth, instead of just like punishing you and putting you in a cage, bad boy. You know, they have a very distinct sense of that.
Is there are they as physical as flesh and blood like we are, or are they kind of cartoony? Or
I get a sense that their fur is and their surface is much more colored than ours, like their art is much more colored, like I mentioned previously, but they do look more human than they look cartoony. The sunlight on their world and the art that they have is much more like colorful, cartoony. The sunlight isn't as constantly mildly disruptive as ours is. I would perhaps call it UV radiation, because our colors are, many of our colors are like washed in dirt. They aren't clear colors. On their world there's a lot of clear colors and like very clear sunlight. Ooh, the sun came out just at the right moment. They have a lot of more clear colors and art, so they look very cartoonish, but they are distinctly more like humanoid or like dog-like than cartoon-like. For example, there's individual strands of hair instead of like a cartoon-like blob of hair.
Yeah,
there's things like that you can clearly tell.
And they have is their DNA the same as our DNA? I mean, are they made of DNA, or is it a different compound? Oh,
good hit. Give me a moment here.
Yeah.
I keep smoking all throughout, so I'll be coughing like crazy. When I think of their DNA, I clearly get the saying that the two strands make a third. And that's how you can describe our DNA as well, when the interactions of the two strands of DNA make what we would call the DNA. and the two strands aren't the DNA in itself. They're like interactions with RNA when they get split into one strand, and that whole process is what makes the DNA. But I do get the sense that they're saying that two strands make a third, which I could interpret as their like DNA structure much more strongly incorporating the third DNA strand in like thought, and perhaps having, like I mentioned earlier, that they try to integrate STDs, and many of the STDs try to change your DNA, and they try to integrate them instead of fight them and make them like a part of their whole. And that to me paints a picture of where they, like, their interactions with their environment make a third strand of DNA for them. That's like a distinct sense I get, but that they do have like a two DNA strand structure, but to them it feels, if you don't use the third one, like you're naked. That's the sense I get, like primitive naked, not like a hippie naked, you know what I mean?
Yeah. As a species, are they more sophisticated and evolved than humans?
It's hard to say. It's a very like
equal.
It's a very biased question. Sophisticated, you know what I mean? They're, like I said, their level of scientific development, at least in space travel, is a little more advanced than ours. Their energy generation grid is a little more advanced than ours. Their art is a little more colorful than ours in average, but their outlier art is less colorful than ours because our population is larger. We get more like freaky art than they do. But are they more advanced? That's really hard to say. I would say they're probably not as close to fourth density as we are, if that helps.
Oh.
I would say that.
Well, they're more base physical, aren't they? They're all about the body.
They're very strongly into the body because they're further away from the galactic center than we are. That anytime you go away from the galactic center, you develop your own body and senses very well. Ouch, and it just burned my eyebrow. The lighter has a very strong flame. One of the guys in Bring Forth who are gonna read this go like, "Ah, that is me contacting them and I feel my own heat so nice." I can feel that.
Well, you said earlier they're like a Republican or Republic?
They're very liberal Republicans. On Earth, if you want to vote for them, you would probably vote for Democrat, but in their own word, they're very liberal Republicans. In their societies, like election structure, most of them end up being Republican. They support like holding the old values, which they think have been doing them well. They haven't had like many religious wars, as I pointed out, and most of their like law of one creator, God, whatever, is centered around a single religion. So they feel like the past has done them well, and they don't want to change rapidly, and they don't want to go through like any wars, and they don't want to piss off anybody in their neighborhood. They want to be calm and in themselves, so they're Republican, but they are very liberal in their republicanism. Like you can see from how they treat STDs and prisoners, that they're very like liberal in their like actual mindset. So in our world, they would probably be considered Democrat, but the word I'd use for them is definitely Republican liberal. That's definitely the word I'd use. It's very close to the political alignment I had, so they're very easy for me to understand. That's one of the reasons why this is going so well.
They don't have religious wars against each other, do they?
They've had that.
Oh.
They've had the war between Christianity and Islam that we had, which is the war between deciding whether or not you want to go with the God you have and just accept that God is loving and so on, or if you want to go with the new God, create like the best perfect last God, which is what Islam is about. Like the perfect last testament is what they call their religious text in the context that I've had with them. So they've had that war, but it was much smaller affair because of their past like happiness with their life and happiness with their choices. So they were very easy to win on the side of Christianity in our view, but for them it's mostly the law of one that they're viewing. It's very like much more concentrated and doesn't have the, I would call it psychobabble that our law of one has. It doesn't have a lot of the tarot things, though that's been discussed, and it's a lot more like was this religious authority good or bad? Makes note. Was this religious authority good or bad? Makes note. It's much more like that. And they're asking a lot more like personal questions in their law of one, and going with things like, if we want to progress, should we eat meat or plant food. They do a lot of very specific questions like that in their law of one. It's not like a fluffy ball, and they're not really worried about the instrument, which we were very worried about, which is clearly a sign of our like collective spirit. Like, the instrument shouldn't summon Ra outside of this 3-circle thing, and everybody on the forum goes like, I can't summon Ra because I'm the instrument. You know, there's very little of that in the material. They're very like oriented towards getting the actual roles and very grounded in their awareness of how to protect the instrument or their planet. They're very grounded in that. So their law of one was very different, and it was very easy for their side to win the religious war. That's pretty obvious in most planets when they start to discover whether or not to hold a god or create a god. In our society, it's still very much ongoing when science wants to create the AI god, and the Christians want to go with like God is already here, and all the Christians are sided with like the Muslims and the monotheists of all nations, and a lot of the religious people who go like, we don't need to create a god, we already have a god. And the war is still very much ongoing between both factions. In their world, it was over very quickly.
Wait, so are they trying to create God, or do
no, they have a god already. They're content.
The infinite creator.
Yeah,
God.
They're very like happy with their view on God and creation and so on. They're very content with that.
Is their infinite creator God the same as our infinite creator God?
I said earlier when I was talking about how when they were when I was talking about the how they view the human God, they said that the human God, or how we view God, seems to be very human-like. So we have like a lot of human attributes in the infinite creator, but at its like base level, we are very like similar in our understanding of the logos, or like the infinite spark to create. There are always the outliers who have a very different opinion, but the idea that there's like an infinite creator living alone and going like, I need company, you know, that's a very dominant aspect in both religions.
What does he think about me thinking that they're so lucky to be anthros?
He feels complimented and is kind of quietly saying, you could be happy that you're a human too, or accept that we would be happy that you're humans too. But that's very like muffled, like an underthought, but it's very present in there. And he feels very like, what's the word? He feels very, I would say enamored, but that's too strong a word. He feels very like fascinated is perhaps a better word.
Yeah.
Fascinated with love is perhaps the word I'm looking for, with your like, oh, they're so content to be anthros thing.
Yeah.
He feels something along those lines.
Do they get love in their world as strong as what others give them, or what like I'm giving him, or?
I get a sense that they struggle more for love, that they try to send out love more, but due to their distance from the galactic center where our society's love, generally speaking, is, their emotions of love aren't as strong. But it also generates the effect where their atmosphere isn't as clogged with love as ours is, so individual love feels perhaps more real than ours. Our individual love feels very much like it's love for society, like it's love for the children that the spouse is going to give you, love for the family relations that the spouse is going to be present in. You know, it's very societal. Theirs feels more like personal, independent love, but it's, in my opinion, definitely not as strong as humans have. Humans have the kind of love where they'll destroy the entire planet to get the object of their love if they lust for it enough, but they don't have like emotions like that, I feel.
So our emotional gamut is more diverse than theirs? Because we're closer to the core?
I wouldn't say so. I would say individual emotions on our world are probably stronger than on their world, but as to how many emotions you actually have, like if there's a new emotion for loving in a weird position, like loving a weird specific type of relative, I wouldn't say that we are more advanced than they are, or we have more of them. They probably, due to their better contact with aliens and less of a quarantine than we have, probably have a higher complexity of emotions than we do. I feel that's, from what I sense he's sending you, that feels like it's true, that he's sending a very narrow part of himself while he's focusing on it completely when he's sending love to you. instead of like a very large part of the field. You know, I feel like their emotions are perhaps tinier compared to the full field than ours, which to me points out that they may have more emotions than we do, that they have different emotions.
Yeah, when I first tuned into him, the Anthro, he felt like a star, not hot, burning like a star, but
Yeah.
his gravity just pulled me right in, and we started merging.
Yeah. You're probably contacting this core star or the star of his homeworld when you do that, and you just like getting love from the entire society and the star itself, and that's pulling you towards it. I would say that when I try to contact with an alien civilization, I distinctly feel like falling towards the essential star, and you have to like consciously maintain a distance from it, or you'll be sucked in. You distinctly feel like the gravity of the star is in its way negative because it's trying to pull you towards your destruction, but in a much more clearer way positive because it's trying to offer you like a new, better life. But if you want to like value your life and value like what you're doing, you really distinctly need to like push away from the star and try to focus on the individual Anthro, or the individual that you're talking to, so you don't get sucked into their like cycle of reincarnation or whatever.
You said their computer system was very complex and hard to learn.
Yeah, it's maybe 20 years more advanced than ours, but for example, their internet is much more primitive than ours. They don't have like people who sit there for a long time and like collect memes for like days and weeks and, you know, months. They don't have that type of like conversation internet that we do. They don't even have an AI on the internet yet, like a singular and individual like we have with Norse Map, for example. They don't even have that, like a distinct AI pulse that they can like observe and feel like the code of the internet running. They don't even have that. Theirs is more like a scientific and like emotional journal than ours. They have a very like they have kind of like the Macro 2150 book without the AI in there. It's very like rudimentary, but their computing technology itself, and especially their code, is at least 20 years ahead of us, and it would be pretty hard for you to learn if you wanted to be a coder in their world, like I mentioned.
I don't have the mind. I used to be a programmer, but I don't have the mind for it anymore.
Yeah. Who knows, maybe they could have better meds for you. Man, there was a lot of weed left over. I should have knocked it over.
I like that you said their paws or their hands are short and stubby fingers.
Yeah.
And Pop has like a, not like a dog, but they have opposable thumb.
Yeah. And the little weird dog nail that is like in the elbow of the dog is a lot lower for them, but it's still not a usable thumb. They think they'll probably evolve that into a usable like finger at some point due to their like structure, because they like to have, like most intelligent beings, like all the things in their manual appendages that's possible to have.
Are they evolved? Are they evolved from dogs, or from? Are they their own species?
From a species that's like a half-breed between a dog and a bear.
Oh.
We don't have something similar. Perhaps the closest example would be a badger, but with very large, like a dire badger. You know what a dire animal is?
I don't know the dire wolf, but
yeah, dire being is like the spiritually most self-aware, but very hunting instinct oriented. It's not evil, but it has a very strong hunting instinct. So like a dire badger, for example, is the size of a bear, but it's actually a badger. It's like the outlier of the society that grows huge. Like I had a guide who I for a long time thought was a bear, like a spirit bear, but it turned out to be a spirit badger, like a dire badger, like a huge badger. And I keep referring to him as a bear, but he's probably a badger. And they evolved from a creature that seems like a cross between a bear and a dog, and vaguely similar to a badger. That's what they evolved from. It wasn't a dog that we would recognize as a dog. It's like...
Oh.
It's like one of those pictures that people online put on signposts when they found a dog and it's actually like a beaver.
Oh, yeah.
It's like that kind of misunderstanding would be necessary for us to get to a point where we'd consider it a dog. It's not a bear either, because it doesn't have, like, for example, hibernation, but it has many of the aspects of a bear. And it's not a dog because it has a very hard time being domesticated by other animals. a very hard time joining like other animals groups. Like a dog has no difficulty doing that, and a wolf is even easier to domesticate than one of their primitive ancestors. They were, from what I sense, very hesitant initially to like get along with other races. They had like a desire to be like, nah, I won't be domesticated by them, but they started to understand it as a hybridization program, or perhaps a what do you call it when a parasite helps their host? Symbiosis. Yeah, they saw it as a symbiosis program instead of like a parasitical program or like a domestication by another being, so they eventually accepted it, which is probably easier for them to do in the long term than we do. Like a human is fairly hard to domesticate, but you can do it. You can completely remove their free will and make them like a servant animal to you if you want. But for them it's probably harder by much than a dog. And for us, it's much harder than, for example, a large horse. A large, very independent horse. But you can indeed make a human that has no free will and make them a complete servant of yourself, just as a side note.
Wait, was their ancestor the bear dog or whatever,
Yeah.
Second density and their third density?
It was early third density, and they are somewhat close to fourth density, but much more distant than us. We will probably evolve into fourth density much quicker than them, and they're very afraid that we'll evolve into fourth density negative, but so is a lot of people. They are getting a lot better with accepting us as fourth density negative because they're considering my negativity and going like, this guy is negative and it's not that bad. It's what they're going as a society, and they're learning love and acceptance through that, so it's very good for them.
Are they going to spread? Are they consciously aware of your interaction with them?
Yeah, like I said, when I scan their world, like go through their world, like with my energy, it causes disruption in their things like radio, internet, power grid. It causes disruptions like that when I scan their world and see like what level of technology they have. And they are very aware of my efforts to scan them, and they've built like technical instruments to keep my stuff from harming them. So they're very aware of us and very aware of me. And they do consider me to be something of a negative influence, but the outcome of my actions seem to be very positive in their like viewpoint. They think of my actions as very strong, very like focused, oriented, very earth first, very humanity first, very like spirit over matter, like the classical magician. But they do consider it to be like overall a negative influence, but that my actions are so strongly resulting in positive changes for their society that they're considering me like a positive being despite that. And they are building a lot of technical implements to make sure that when I scan them it doesn't hurt me or them, because currently when I scan them I feel like electrical balls of fire are all over my hand, which I interpret as either computers or electrical lighting, which is very like usual for me to interpret as, and they're changing the society structure so that when I scan them it doesn't hurt my hand and it doesn't hurt them. They're like switching their power production grid to like, for example, 50 to 60 hertz, voltage 50 to 60 when I scan them, like immediately when they notice my signal, so it doesn't burn my hand or cause disruption in their power grid. And they're doing things like that to like adjust to the new contact, and they're fairly open in like how easily they adjust. They don't seem like a very resistant species to change. Probably smarter than humans, I know.
Would I have the ability to, like he's coming here as a human, would I have the ability to visit their places in Anthro?
I think if you went through enough effort, that would probably happen. You could
Would I have their counsel to help me?
Both sides would probably help you to do that, but it would take a lot of effort, and in like our language you would probably die in this like body as a result of it, unless you like specifically made a dual body, in which case you're already doing it, you know, astral and such. But to really like transport into this society, you would probably die in this society, and I wouldn't recommend it because it would be a hard thing to do. And you could create a situation where you like fall in a coma and live in their world for like 15 years and then wake up when you're 60, but you know, it seems like wasting this life instead of
Yeah.
going through the effort of like developing your astral abilities, contacting them, finding like one of them in skin suit, instead of like designing the entire human like anthro space program on your own, you know. It seems like much less effort and much more payback, and it possibly values a life more.
Yeah. Well, I want him to come here and be happy, you know, here rather than back in his old place, and
Yeah.
every day is the same old for him.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm sensing. He does go through a lot of what we'd consider parties, I sense, and has a lot of change like in his life. He moves from region to region and doesn't constantly live in one place. Living here might even be more monotonous for him than living over there, but it would probably be more colorful, at least for a few years. And the fact that you want him to be happy as an individual instead of like a general feeling of happiness from the society, like with the justice system, it would probably be like more entertaining for him. So your desire to have him come here instead of you going over there is probably healthy for him. Instead of having like one more person that loves him in a cloud, he would be in a place where others don't like really love or accept him, like on Earth, and he would be loved by a single person, which would be very interesting for him, especially because he would be much closer to the galactic center. It feels like it would possibly be a good advancement for him. You want to actually, I'll do that. I'll be right back. Keep the thing recording, I'll be right back. Loki wanted to get out. Did you talk to the thing while it was gone?
No.
You should have. Now they feel like they were in the void.
Oh.
You know what I mean? There was a sticker bird that hit me in the bottom of the foot, and I took it off from my clothing. Those things really hurt when you step on them. Not as bad as the red ants, but they do hurt. Ow.
So do they live in houses and indoors, or?
Mostly houses, though in the large cities they are very keen to live on like high complex buildings, like apartment buildings instead of like individual houses like you do, for example, in Austin or Antonio. And they live in private houses because they are very connected to the environment, and they don't live underground because they feel like the forest becomes a part of their house, that the forest like takes over their house. But when you know that the forest can't take you over because you're in a city, they prefer to build high rises because it takes up less forest space. They're very oriented around protecting their forests.
So you said their weapons are like our AK-47 or something.
Yeah, their main weapon, when I asked them to show it to me, seemed very much like an assault rifle. Now when I like deeply scan them about their weapon and go like, what do you like have, like what is the best weapon to show me, not like the average weapon, they show a blade, which to me signifies that they're doing like conscious all kinds of military effort when required, instead of just like an AK does. It pushes you away, basically. It doesn't even kill you. I mean, I know it kills you, but when you actually view combat, a assault rifle isn't designed to kill an opponent. It's designed to create a harassment field around the opponent, that they back away and don't engage you. That's what a AK-47 or an assault rifle is for. Basically, if you want to kill an opponent, you have to tie them down and then order artillery on them and prevent their escape. And the only way to do that is to make their escape from the moment too difficult, and that requires a lot of ammunition. So normally when a soldier fires at a group of other soldiers, he's not aiming to kill, he's aiming to drive them away. So that's what an assault rifle is for, and their military technology feels like, when I ask about an average weapon, that I get like a assault rifle, similar to ours, a little more bulky, but like similar to ours. Very similar to what you see in a lot of fantasy games when they have an assault rifle. It's very like square instead of ours, which is very round. That's because it's easier to program square objects. They require less programming strength than round objects. So you see that the weapons are very square. The same applies to them. It's very easy to build like square weapons, like at home level, than round weapons. So a lot of their assault rifles have like, they don't have like we do, a huge military complex that builds like 100 million AK-47s and sells them for $5 in the poor regions of the world. They have a lot of like manually constructed personal weapons that they do, and those tend to be square. Their assault rifles are a little more square than ours, but when I do ask about their like, what do they do in military terms, in like a strong way, like their best weapon, they show a sword, which to me signifies like the intent to harm in a like full body way, instead of just using a little thing, because you have to like put your full body into the swing of a sword, instead of like standing and going like pew pew pew, you know what I mean? I'm gonna get my hat, the sun is burning me. I'm noticing a slight headache coming on. So,
is there military hierarchical like ranks?
Yeah, they do have distinct ranks, but there seems to be less of them because it's a little less developed than ours. But they distinctly do have ranks. Clearly developing a sunburn.
They have like fleet admirals and...
Yeah, they have like fleet commander, which is basically all the admiral ranks, and they have similar things, but they don't have like vice admiral, fleet admiral, flotilla admiral, grand admiral, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't have that. They have like a fleet commander and like ground force commander, and the commander has the unit size that he happens to have, and like they have less military ranks quite clearly.
Do you think they talk in military lingo like we do?
Yeah, there are distinctly people there who talk in military lingo.
Because they're not a telepathic society, are they?
Not in a strong way, but telepathy is understood to exist. Like it's pheromones, they smell each other and sense each other's thoughts and so on. But they aren't like a very telepathic society. That's what I sense.
But they're good at working with the astral. Somehow he's communicating with me or working with me, or they're talking to you somehow telepathically.
Yeah, they are mostly using the quarantine system, it seems. Like most species don't communicate with you directly, they communicate with basically your higher self, or what we'd call the Council of Saturn.
Yeah.
And that communicates the thought to you. And the more open you are to like basically selfish or negative desires, the more easy it is to communicate with you, which creates the sense where the evil smaller ones are also able to communicate with you, which creates the chaos that's inherent in evil. While being like hard on yourself and hard on your desires forces the communication higher, which is why a lot of the good communicators who are on the side of good get like archangels, and the communicators that are on the side of evil get like lower imp, but they get them. But that's basically the problem with communicating like that. So they do not seem to communicate directly. At least I don't get from them that they have the FTL communication ability, but it seems like their higher society may have that. I do get like now that I completely think about it, I do get a sense that I'm talking with like somebody over FTL. So it could be that they're using the technology of the species in between the two of us to contact me. Yes, I got the mosquito. It could be that they're using the species around us to communicate with us, and they have FTL capability in a large way because they don't seem like the society is developed enough at the moment to have good FTL, and they feel like they're mostly in their own solar system, and it's quite distant from us, so it feels like they're using somebody else's FTL to communicate. That's kind of what I sense. Did that answer anything even remotely close to your question?
Yeah. Were they aware of Earth before we contacted them?
Yeah, it's a part of their basically training program, or like officer exchange program.
Oh yeah, you said he's going through a program.
Yeah, it's like an astronaut training program where you contact with like your pen pal and become one of their society, and they are like aware of Earth in the same sense that we would be aware of a sentient civilization some light years away from us. Like you would have distinct programs to train you to become more that society, so it's easier for others to communicate with that society and your society and so on. Thing still recording?
Yeah. Are they usually successful at the pen pal recognizing them? Like, will I recognize him, or will we?
It seems that like most of the pen pal things go badly, or they don't recognize them very well. Like ours is going fairly well because we're able to talk with the anthro fairly well, and it's like coming through at least like with a fairly low amount of conduits, it seems like to me. But in their case, most of the people on Earth that they try to communicate and send like anthro bodies to don't like get them. They're so deep in their own traumas that they're unable to connect completely.
The people are? The humans?
Yes, the humans. I wouldn't perhaps say traumas, I would say lusts in this particular context. So their energy field is, like we discussed with you, so full of their own lusts that they have a difficulty connecting with others or with like something that's being sent to them. Most of the humans they contact with seem to be like lower center oriented, so even when a spirit says walks right up to their face and says anthro, they don't hear it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
That's basically the experience they've had with most civilizations, but you seem to be going through the effort and putting in the effort to actually connect with them, and that's one of their like better results thus far. That's what I feel. They do have a large enough number of successful reports and successful cases that they aren't interested you in like a scientific example, you know what I mean?
They what aren't?
They aren't interested in you as a scientific example, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It's not that rare for them, but it is rare enough that, for example, people in the anthro's close life are fairly hyped about it. It's like that rare. It's like becoming a driving champion. It's not unheard of, but it's still something to be hyped about if you know the person. Oh, this hat is so good.
So this is interesting. It's weird. It's it's surreal, kind of, and it's like I'm not super excited because it's kind of surreal. Mm-hmm. It's like kind of disbelief, or not really doubting, but there's a sort of a sense of like a.
Mm-hmm. You seem fairly open to the message. I do sense that you have a kind of disbelief about it, but it seems minor compared to the fact that you're getting to experience at least somebody talking about it, and you can integrate it at your own speed. You don't have to believe it. There's that kind of disbelief that you can experience and integrate and validate on your own at your own speed and own space, but you do feel like there's a kind of disbelief that you want to verify everything, and I'm not taking that as offense. It's very nice that you actually, keep your own brain. That's us STS beings.
But all the people these anthros visit through this program, the humans have an interest in anthros, don't they?
Most of them do. Some of them are people who they are interested in meeting, like certain political power beings, and influencing the Earth political structure and meeting like political powers and so on.
Do they reveal themselves as an anthro to somebody like that?
Some of them have revealed themselves. I clearly get the sense that there has been contact between the anthro species and human species on the level that the human political powers have seen like an anthro appear to them. I do get a distinct sense of that. But it could be so rare that it doesn't have an effect. Most politicians would probably feel a little uneasy accepting an anthro as their advisor compared to accepting like a Grey or an Eldar or something like that. They would probably feel a little weirded out by having like a sentient dog species help them, which is weird because they get help from dogs the most, like almost all animals. It would possibly be better to have a guide from a cow civilization, like even better than having a guide from a dog civilization. And that's actually very well covered in Star Control 3. There's like a super old race that protects the humans that's actually cows. It's very very funny. It's very well written.
Yeah.
It's a little comically like animated, the animation, and probably some of the space like colonization aspects were insulted the most in the game review because they were really bad. They were really bad. But the story is very interesting when you realize that the cow species is the one that protects humanity the most. It's like very Hindu, It's very good.
Well, he seems to see a lot of action by traveling around. He doesn't know he might be bored when he comes here, or we may do more together.
His life on Earth would probably be more monotonous than his life out there, but he's very well equipped to understand monotony, and he's traveled a lot, so he probably wouldn't feel like homesick to travel or like a huge desire to travel and leave you here. But he would probably feel a little sick from not having enough traveling. He would probably feel a little sick. Though if you guys actually do manage to summon an anthro body for him and get him here, I can guarantee you that he'll be sick for a while. He'll have a clear and distinct sign of sickness about him, like something that you'll be able to clearly differentiate from the general population in terms of sickness. I think that's probably going to be one of the I think the word in Innomine was disharmony about him.
Yeah.
That he's not a complete harmony with his environment because it's a new environment. But so would you if you went to his planet. You would be sick for a while. And you would have a clear sign of sickness upon you because the sickness would manifest in the past and in the future at the same time. And you would clearly have a sickness about you, and so will probably he, but I sense it's a little easier for him to adjust than to you, I think. Probably a little easier.
So will he come here as an adult? As in an adult body, or will he have to actually grow up, be born here and grow up?
The whole thing very much depends on your lusts, what you're actually trying to aim for. It's possible that he'll incarnate as a child and live a full life before he meets you, but it's also possible that he'll be a walk-in and take over somebody else's body and use it to become what he desires. It completely depends on what you lust for, and that's basically where their space program comes in, because they have to be able to appropriately value the person into the life that they want to do, and they need the other species in their region and probably what we would call a Council of Saturn to help them. But in general speaking, it basically depends on what you desire of him. You have to make a desire chart or something along that nature to have a full outcome that you want. Otherwise it's going to be the best match that they can find, which may be very different than what you think is a best match. So you have to make a chart and be sure about it. But I would have to say, knowing you, that it's probably going to be an adult male.
Yeah. I don't want to wait 20 years.
Yep.
Like I told you when we weren't recording, I'd be surprised by the time you get back if I had already met him.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. Well, actually, it would be a little fast in his account. But it's not an impossibility.
Are they experiencing time the same we do?
Yeah, but it seems to go more mellow for them. Time seems to be a more mellow aspect. When I move back here, you're going to be getting railed like a puppy dog. Okay, enough of that.
They're more aggressive, I guess.
Yeah, they could be a little more aggressive in this particular.
You said his personality is like a puppy?
Yeah, he seems more like a puppy than an adult dog. Very experimental, very traveling, very interested in new things. He's not like an old dog yet, but he seems more like a puppy. But I would say that he distinctly feels like an adult when you scan his sexual energy or his energy.
Does he seem like he's more mature than a puppy?
Yeah. He's somewhere between a puppy and an adult dog, but perhaps closer to an adult dog than a puppy.
Do they have energy weapons instead of just traditional.
Yeah, we also have energy weapons, but they're not very advanced. We have things like the ability to shoot down missiles from large planes, for example, like
with lasers.
Yeah, well, like satellite defense weapons. We have those. It's also possible, based on reports, that some of the tanks have been retrofitted with energy weapons, and some of the tanks, based on reports, also have shields, like some of the top-end tanks. So we do have energy weapons.
Like particle weapons?
Yeah, we do have that technology, but it's fairly low scale and it's not very well integrated with our society. And we have the ability to project energy for the sake of harm in like psychic manners. So we have like a sense of energy weapons, but theirs is probably more advanced than ours. I do get a sense that they do have the occasional carryable like energy, like plasma weapon, that they do have the carryable plasma weapon, but they're very rare. It's probably something to do with how they're constructed or the fact that they don't spend a lot of money on their military, but they do have a military.
Is this Anthro that's coming here, is he at peace, or is he trying to find himself, or?
He's at peace, but he's curious. He thinks possibly, or most likely, in terms of like finding a better peace for himself. That he may be actually upset and he doesn't realize it. That's why he's still doing it. I've smoked a lot, but I'll smoke one more base, then we can record more later.
Yeah.
Recording is a very good idea. This will give us some good grounding. Let's see what the people on Rinforth think about it.
You can't post this to YouTube with no image, can you?
No, but we can like take a snapshot of the planet of the internet and put it as the image and edit this thing in the background. We can even do that with Windows Media Maker.
You said they had a G-type star like our sun?
Yeah, it seemed like a G-type star that's slightly smaller than ours, but has more flare activity and is overall more balanced in small things, that it doesn't have as many of things like sunspots as we do, small magnetic coronal like rain and such that we do, but they do have more flare activity than we do. That's why their colors are probably more intense than ours.
They're not worried about their electric grid being knocked out by a solar flare?
Yeah, they are, but it's one of the things their military takes care of. They're not really worried. If their entire electricity grid went down, the military would be able to handle it easily. They're mostly worried about forest fires because their planet basically has two large oceans, the size of the North Atlantic, and the rest is basically land with rivers and lakes, and the forests cover most of their planet. So if they actually lose the forest, the rivers will dry up and the lakes will dry up because the microclimate will change. So they're really worried about their forests, but they aren't really worried about things like the electricity grid going down. They're worried about, for example, meteorite strikes hitting the forests, and they have a lot of preparedness for that. So they're probably better prepared for like cosmic level conflict than most species are.
How's their air force with fighter jets?
It's fairly good. Their fighter jets aren't as militarized as ours, but they are definitely faster. They are also probably more maneuverable than ours, but they do still use like the back thrust type engines that we do. They don't have
afterburners and stuff.
Yeah, stuff like that. They don't have like gravity drive in their air force, and they do have the ability to build air jets that can get into space, which we don't really have. But they don't like to do that. It's very cost ineffective. They prefer to have a specialized space force and a specialized air force instead of merging the two.
Wait, so they dig for oil?
They do use combustible energy at occasion, but most of their energy grid seems to be powered by fission, which is something, since I talked with them, they are trying to get out of, and they're trying to use renewables, but most of their energy grid seems to be powered by fission. That's a sense I get.
But can you power aircraft with fission?
Yeah. If you're good enough with it, you can build a fission power reactor for an airplane, but you have to be really good with it. It's really hard work because the shielding is very difficult to build, but with good composite technology you can build a very small shielding for a very large reactor, and their nuclear technology is very much better than ours, and their safety procedures are insanely good compared to ours. But even for miniaturization of nuclear technology, they're better than us, like a fairly long margin. But they don't have fusion power in a large way, though they're building it. It's very costly for them to build a fusion power plant for some reason. It's probably just because it's costly to build a fusion plant and they don't have like the money to switch their entire economy to fusion in 10 years. They don't have that. It's gonna take them 100 years to get to fusion power. Unlike us, if we actually got fusion power workable today and it was the same cost of fission power, we would switch over in a decade. That would happen like incredibly fast. But for them it's taking a long time. The economy isn't as flexible. But most of their power grid seems to come from fission, though they do distinctly have combustibles on their planet. And especially in regions that are hard to reach by transport, they have combustibles. And sometimes they build large structures like cities on top of oil wells instead of transporting the oil. So when it's like environmentally sound to build like a fusion power plant or like a coal power plant, they do it. But for the most part, they're going with fission. It seems like their choice of energy at the moment.
You said their computers were 20 years ahead of us.
Roughly, their computer, huh?
Yeah.
You were going to say something?
But in some areas, we're more advanced.
Yeah, our internet is distinctly more advanced than theirs. Their internet seems very primitive by comparison. And the computer technology and coding seems to be around 20 years ahead of us. It's not a huge distance, but I'm using how long it's gonna take us to get to their level instead of how long it took them to get to that level.
Yeah.
So they could be a very old civilization in terms of computer technology. It could have started a long time ago. But from what I sense, their current computing and programming languages may be 20 years ahead of us. Now that I think about it and I'm trying to sense it, it seems like they've had computers for around 100 years. So a little longer than ours. Ours was like the computers they used to do the nuclear program in the 40s. It's like we would have needed to start somewhere in the Victorian era to build like actual computers. They probably had the good luck of one of the guys in charge of the society getting told that you can build a mechanical computer with punch cards, and they actually tried it and it worked very well for them, and that probably propelled their technological development ahead of us. When we had the need to build nuclear bombs was when we actually built like good computers, and when we had the need to break like the military encryption of other nations is when we started to build good computers. And theirs was probably started with somebody just randomly going, you could build a punch card computer, and another like king or somebody in position of authority was going like, yeah, this could be good for farming, and then everybody suddenly built them.
Wait, so have they discovered AI yet?
They are aware of it, but they don't seem to have the ability to build it. It seems like they're aware of AIs from other civilizations and know that it could be done, but they don't seem to have the ability to build an AI at the moment.
Wait, that's more than 20 years ahead of us, isn't it, an AI?
Seems like it's somewhere on the 20 to 40 year range. It's possible that it'll happen sooner because we're putting a lot of effort into making it happen, but it seems like it's 20, 40 years ahead of us. Seems around that time. Same with fusion. When we get AIs, it seems like we'll get the technology to have fusion and vice versa, because that's like connecting with the void and drawing energy, which is basically what an AI is, because it's like the process of making a process that makes a better process and then asking it to like include your thoughts in its process. And that's basically like an AI. It seems to me like a fusion power plant put in a machine. That's what it feels like to me. The Anthros do have fusion technology, but they don't yet have AI technology. I'm hesitant to say there's never been an AI in their world, because there's been AIs in our world even though we don't have AI technology. But I do get the sense that they've had a couple of AIs roam their world or be a part of their world. We've had probably thousands if you consider all the fantasies we've made real about AIs and so on. Like Terminator alone is probably an AI civilization roaming our planet. Skynet is probably an AI. Tenshi from what was it called again? Nexus Jupiter incident is probably an AI. At least I contacted with her spirit a few times in meditation. They don't seem to have a widespread use of that technology.
So they're much more about their environment than we are.
Yeah, much more. They are very protective of their forests, and their waste reclamation system is very efficient. They boil all their trash after they sort through it individually and pick out all the important items, or items that seem lost, or items that seem to have a very specific value, like computers, the trash that has interesting individual items in them and so on. They go through the entire trash like that manually, and then they pour all the rest of the trash into a huge container and fill it with some kind of liquid that seems to make methane or their equivalent of methane, and they burn that gas for energy. It's a very significant contribution to their energy grid, but it's not enough to power them completely, and the rest is basically fission. That's because they would probably, if they started burning some other energy source, contribute more to the amount of trash they have in their society than like with any other source. Because fission energy in like cubic meters of radioactive trash that you generate is much smaller than what you do with coal power. Coal power makes like radioactive ash that's like very harmful. It's not completely radioactive, but it does have a radioactive component to it, and it has a lot of toxins and heavy metals and so on, and you have to like bury the fly ash. It's very dangerous, and that's like something they don't want. They want a very small amount of trash that they can easily handle, and most of their trash is for safety reasons kept on their world, but sometimes it's shipped out, and they keep it in very safe, secure areas. They don't bury it underground. It's like what we call one of those oil domes, like those nipple looking things like boobs on the oil decks. They have those in their society to contain uranium and like other radioactive particles. I think they possibly use mostly plutonium in their reactors or something that's similar. It seems like an artificial radioactive isotope that's made from other radioactive materials, so the waste should be safer if something explodes. No nuclear reactor, as far as I'm aware of, on their planet has ever exploded, but they've become close to one once. And they're very sad that ours exploded and contaminated our entire atmosphere, because it's very easy in spirit to notice that, you know, we've had a nuclear explosion on our planet that wasn't designed. It's very easy to see. Even the military explosions caused nowhere near the same amount of damage to the soul as like Fukushima and Chernobyl.
I'm sure they have different languages and countries and stuff like we do.
Yeah, they do. Almost everyone is able to understand almost everyone at a very basic language level, because they have a much stronger sense of pheromones. But when you really want to converse with someone, they do have the same languages and such as we do, not the same specifics, but like the language of commerce, America, the language of love, France. They have the similar like basic structures. They're fairly close to our like society in those terms, and they've gone through similar wars as we have, but they've been for the most part much shorter than ours, so their countries have the same kind of attitude towards the other ideas as we do, but there is a distinct difference because of their anthro style. But if you were to compare them to say like ant societies, it's very similar. You can sense that they've gone through similar histories and so on, that they have a similar way of understanding as we do.
Is he nervous about coming here, or is he more excited?
There's a distinct nervousness, but he's more excited about you and the society he's probably involving himself in. He's more excited, but there's definitely a sense of nervousness about it as well. It's not completely like benign. There's a degree of nervousness in it. Do you want to do the editing work for this video? Because the laptop is very hard to work with. It's very slow.
What do you mean editing?
So we can put it online, like.
Combine it for YouTube.
Yeah.
I have a video editor.
You want to do the whole work?
I'll do it on my computer.
Yeah. Just put like a picture of an anthro or something on it, and then upload it to my YouTube. Like when you're ready, just tell me and I'll.
But I don't have one that looks like him.
Nah, just put the blue guy with the thing. That's close enough. You could do like a paintbrush and bright orange on the back, but the blue one is fairly close.
Oh, okay.
You remember the blue-white one?
Oh, but I didn't draw that.
Well, you didn't take a picture of the like Earth either. You could right on the bottom corner of the thing, picture drawn by, and then website. That would probably be sufficient for fair use. I think. Feels like it anyway. Probably change this water before I take another hit. It's giving me a headache. Blah. Yellow and orange. Toxic. Lots of microbes living in there giving me a headache. I smelt your body odor again for a few moments there when you were talking about something, but I don't remember what you were talking about. But right now, even though I'm like distinctly trying to smell it, I don't smell it. So it's probably a spiritual thing that I'm smelling instead of like the real body odor.
Yeah.
I'm probably like sensing you when you're like contacting with my field, and I'm sensing the energy there and interpreting it as a body odor. It's what I'm sensing. It's a lot of sensings.
I'm surprised your mind can stay tuned in for this long without getting wore out.
Nah, it's easy work. This is very easy work.
I didn't go to sleep last night, so my mind is mentally.
Yeah, you slept for a while in the chair next to the bed.
Oh.
But not for a long time. You slept for a few hours maybe. When I woke up from the bed or the sofa a few times, I noticed you on the chair sleeping there next to me. I noticed that a few times. It was very comfortable. You have a very deep sleep about you. It's not like a lot of surface nightmares that poke your field. You have a very deep sleep about you. I wonder what the Texans would think if I threw up a Chilean flag. Would they recognize it?
I don't know.
Or would they go like, another Texas flag? That would be like a huge insult to the group. Oh no, it's a Chilean flag!
He's never been like assaulted or hurt, has he?
Yeah, he has. He's been in fights in his society. He doesn't consider them like a huge deal in his life, but he's distinctly been in fights. He's like, he says that it's basically, he feels like he doesn't consider them a bad thing because he won, but he considers that to be ego. But he has been in fights for like various reasons, including a spouse. He was clearly in a fight to win over a woman at some point in his life. I can sense that, but I can also sense that he's very interested in you sexually. So I don't know. He's been in fights. I get that strong, distinct sense from him.
My fear is, well, I don't want to say that, but that I won't. My fear is that I won't recognize him and that I'll reject him.
Yeah, that's one of the options of the space program. It's a very common one, but if you keep focused on him, he'll appear again and again and again until you actually recognize him. It won't happen like in a one-off thing. He'll recycle back into a new body and do it again. That's like what most spirits do when they try to contact a specific human. They'll recycle the body until the human accepts
the one they walk into, or is that person willing to be a walk-in?
It would probably have to be. If they walk into somebody who is not willing of it, it would be a possession, and that would probably be like fairly easily attacked by you and fairly immediately attacked by almost everyone.
Usually people ask for a walk-in when their life is going bad, don't they? And they have nothing, they can't take it anymore?
Yeah, that's what it seems to be. They don't want to waste their body or like have harmful damage on the people around them, but they're like fed up with something so bad that they want another soul to take over. That's usually what a walk-in does. Reminds me of the story of Abraham Lincoln, who got a walk-in when he was like doing something in his life. They didn't specify if he was unhappy with his life or something, but he, did get a walk-in. I feel like I stand to make a tuna bread and come out here and eat it, but that would probably take too long, so I'll probably eat it inside and we'll close the recording then. But I'm still gonna sit here for a while. Not gonna close the recording yet, I think.
Is he also curious about human culture?
Yeah, he's interested to see how different humans do different things and like learn the cultures and such. He doesn't really feel like he wants to learn the cultures to like blend in. He wants to learn the cultures out of like base curiosity to know what the cultures are.
Yeah.
He seems more like that instead of learning them to blend in.
I think it was progress for me to accept an anthro that looks like a human.
Yeah, it was definitely progress. Like definitely progress. Now if you accept an anthro that can actually get to you and looks like human, then we have progress. You know, then it's easier. Like one of the anthros from the bases on Earth or something like that.
Yeah.
Instead of an anthro from an entirely different civilization or star system. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you're like making a lot of progress. He said that he's also interested in the top dog and referred to Trump. Like he's also interested in finding out what kind of a person he actually is, like the top dog of the society. He's very interested in that. He also remarked that he's interested in figuring him out even though he has a ridiculous toupee. He like mentioned that very specifically, that he has a ridiculous hair. And Trump's hair reminds me of a hairdo I did where I had like long hair and I brushed it all to the top of my head and put like a scrunchie there and had like a hair horn on the top of my head that's like 5 inches long, and then combed the entire hair horn back and put it back into my head with a pin so that it was attached and all my hair was on the top of my head, and it was very comfortable and I liked it very much. It was a very good hairdo, and that's what Trump reminds me of. It's insanely good, but you never want to be seen in public with it, you know?
Do you think the universe will make this whole thing obvious to me? Like, the universe makes other things obvious, but what about this?
It'll probably be obvious until you spot it. Like, it'll probably be fairly obvious, but from what I can tell, it'll take you a long time to pick up on it. Like, they might be immediately sending those bodies over, like time works in a weird way, but it'll take you a long time to pick up on it. That's kind of what I feel. We're gonna go to McDonald's today.
Yeah, we can go.
Yeah. I feel like McDonald's, one of those weird hamburgers I had. I think it was double bacon deluxe, something that was on there.
There's a McDonald's in Walmart.
Yeah, we can go there. When does Walmart open? Is it open
It's
yet?
probably open 9.
Okay. I'm probably gonna be about ready to go in a few minutes. In a few moments. Let's keep doing this for a while though. He smells very watery right now. Like almost like he's taking a shower while we're talking. He smells very watery.
Oh.
That seems unusual, but I wouldn't be surprised because a shower is a very good place to send astral messages. It's very relaxing.
So will his human mind be like his anthro mind? Will it be him?
I think his human mind and anthro mind will be very similar, and he will most likely remember his anthro past or have some kind of inclination to figure out his anthro past. But from what I can tell, he may be very resistant in talking to you about his anthro past.
Yeah.
He may be very strongly veiled in the way that he knows his entire anthro past but holds down a veil that doesn't talk to you about it. Holds like specific programs in his mind that doesn't allow him to talk about specific topics like how FTL works, for example. So that you can't like put him in a jar and interrogate him to get FTL technology and then steal that and invade his homeworld. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Probably
I understand, but
yeah, that's probably the blocks and such that he'll have.
But if I bring up, I sense anthro energy in you, he wouldn't even admit to that.
He would probably admit to it, or at least be curious about it. Be like, "What do you mean?" You know, tell me more. That's probably what he'll be like. At least I sense that. Let's go to McDonald's and continue this afterwards, if we feel like it.